Welcome to Organize Zen Now. My name is Janie Downey. Thank you so much for joining me here. If this content is helpful to you, please hit the like button below. That makes me happy. And then please hit subscribe. That makes YouTube happy and makes talks like this more available in their search. So that's super important to me, and I think it's super important to us as a community. So if you can hit subscribe, I deeply appreciate it. All right, so Organize Zen is all about getting to your best work, but feeling good about it and figuring out ways that work well for you, not necessarily ways that work well for everyone else. I think we all get caught up into, oh, everybody's doing this way, or I should be a morning person, or I should be able to work late into the night. You want to work in a way that works well for you so that you're peaceful and you're happy about what you're getting done and the way that you're getting it done. So this is the last in a series on ways to stay on track. And here's the funny thing about today's talk, which is I'm going to tell you that sometimes you have to get off track, and that you may have a plan, but sometimes the universe has a plan that differs from yours, and the universe usually wins out. I love this quote to go with today's talk. So this is from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Learn how to get in touch with the silence within yourself and know that everything in life has purpose. There are no mistakes, no coincidences. All events are blessings given to us to learn from. Tough one to digest, but a really super important message. Okay, so I'm going to hit this from a couple different angles. The first is, when you get off track, is to embrace the facts and then move on. So I think a lot of us can get caught up in worry, and worry is very anti-Zen. So you're trying to get stuff done and you think, oh no, the weather's may mess with me, or what if I was late to this, or what if I ask and I'm working on something and something doesn't happen quite the exact way that I want it to, or what if I get involved in something and it's not really perfect. Embrace the facts. This is what you have. This is what's going on in your life right now, and here's what you can do with it. And I know that sounds just utterly maybe too practical, but this is the Zen part, is to say you're present and this is what you have and this is how you're going to deal with it. And the perfectionism is also something that just really steal your Zen. If you just feel like everything that you do has to look a certain way or be a certain way, if you can let that go, do what you can. Do the best that you can in the circumstance that you're in. Okay, that's my first little piece of this. The second piece of this is when you get knocked off of your path, it may be time to ask for help. So asking for help is hard because you have to recognize that you need help, and then you got to find somebody that can help you. When you ask for help, first recognize it in yourself to say, I'm in over my head on something. I'm going to need some help. Ask somebody who can genuinely help you. You may have your best go-to person, but they may not be the person that knows the most about that. So really consider your network to say, who could help me the most with this? And then when you ask for help, plan ahead. Because when you ask for help, the worst thing that can happen, somebody asks you for help and you say, sure, I can help you. And then they're not sure what time, or they're not exactly sure what they're asking about. So plan ahead so that the person you're asking has a very clear picture of what you need help with and how they can help you. And as specific as you can be is super helpful. If you just say, I don't know, I just need some help, you're gonna make somebody else really worry about you. Be very specific. I need specific help on this topic for this amount of time. That will help you and it will help them. You also need to really trust this person. So you think you've asked the best person to help you with this. Two things. One, if they say yes, this is a good person that you ask, then you have to let them roll with what you ask for help with. Also, if they say no, you need to really trust that as well and not be resentful or say, oh, couldn't you please? And what if it was this? If they say no, they're protecting their time, or they're saying, I'm really not the best person for you to ask. Trust that. If they say yes, if they say no. The next thing is, when they help you, express gratitude. I feel like so many times in our life, people ask me for help all the time. And when they're grateful for it, man, you just want to help again. If they ask for help and they don't ever acknowledge it, you don't have to write a thank you note for everything, but express your gratitude. Be deeply grateful in your heart that somebody helped you. It's good for you and it's good for them. And the last thing is, if you ask for help, you got to be prepared to return the favor. And I think a lot of people miss this in life and in business, in our families. So don't be surprised when someone asks for help, and then wholeheartedly be willing to help. Even if they haven't helped you in the past, be helpful. Be a good mentor to somebody. All right. And then, so here's the bottom line with all of this. Is when you get knocked off your path, and you will, we all do in our own unique ways, find the lesson. And then the second piece is to see the path, because when you hit a wall, your energy's diverted, you're going in one direction, and boom, you have to go in a new direction. There's still a lot of energy there, but you're on a new path, which is exciting. Maybe not at the time. You did not expect to hit that wall, but now you're on a new path. So I'll just tell you a quick story, and then I'll show you how I worked with this exercise. So I was directing a show up in Maine, Christmas Story, the musical. Kids show, super complex, young cast, a lot of folks never been on stage before. And when I direct, I'm just ridiculous. I like to design the sets, and I like to build the sets, and I do all the props. And I'm very bad about asking for help because I love doing everything, right? So I had a lot of help with this, and at the same time, I was still doing everything. I spent every day at the theater, every day working on the show for about 3 months. And we got to opening night, and my back went out. And I have never had back troubles, but I literally, on the dress rehearsal, couldn't get up out of one of the seats because my back had thrown out because I was working on a set piece that I shouldn't have been working on. So I couldn't finish the rehearsal. I had to ask another director to step in. I missed opening night. But there were so many lessons that came out of that, which was, if you're going to do stuff, don't hurt yourself. Don't think that you have to do everything, even if it's joyous to you. I learned to be more patient with myself. I didn't want that to ever happen again. I had to learn how to just take better care of myself. I've directed shows since then. I've never thrown my back out again. But the lessons at that moment were big wall moment for me. And then the theater community stepped up. Everybody jumped back in. Last minute adjustments were made. We opened fine. But it was a weird wall moment. Okay. Embrace the facts. Practice asking for help. Do it in a great way. And then figure out when you get off your path what the lesson is. So for your activity here, as always, you need to find a quiet place within yourself and wherever it is that you work. And I suggest a pad of paper and a pen. I have a very pen that I just love. If you find something that you like to write with, so much the better. I also advocate finding one place to write notes down, not Post-it notes, not scraps of paper, but one place where you think, here's where my ideas go. And I'm gonna write them in this specific place. So again, maybe take a breath or two, and you're gonna brainstorm times in your life that you have hit a wall and that you had to turn a corner. So these are big. The Christmas Story musical was more of a life lesson for me about how to take care of myself, but I'm thinking here about big times in my life of things that happen. Take maybe 10 minutes and just brainstorm. What's important about setting a amount of time is sometimes there's things that are just right at the top of your head, and then there's some things that are kind of buried. So if you have a certain time limit, you might write and think, oh yeah, here was one. Oh, here's another easy one. Now you got to stop and think, what's another one? Still got time on the clock? Maybe here's another one. So you're going to brainstorm out your list. And then, here's another thought with that. I love pen and paper. I use that all the time. But for these talks, I've really been enjoying using an art book instead, where I have a big white sheet of paper. And here's why I like this. So when I write, I just write stuff out, but I doodle all over this. And it's like being a kid. You find all sorts of stuff when you doodle that you didn't even know was in your head. And I have markers, and it's just kind of fun, and it's fun to draw little shapes. It's a thinking process. And again, if you can get into your kid kind of space, kids are very zen. They do what makes them happy. And anyway, if you like to draw at all, or just write and color, it's kind of fun. So title this is the places where I hit a wall and what that led to. So I put 3 significant ones on here, and I'm going to share them with you just to give you some ideas for this. So one was choosing to go to a certain university here in Virginia, and it was not a good fit for me. It was very preppy. This was in the 70s. And I didn't like it enough that I found I wanted to leave, and I couldn't leave. I wanted that degree, but I took 3 months off and I went on Outward Bound. And if I had loved my university, I would never have done this. And on Outward Bound, I met the father of my children. I spent 3 months in the woods. I found out I didn't have to shower every day. I didn't need to live with clean clothes every day. I learned to trust the group that I was with. Very small group, lots of hiking. I just loved being outside. And I never really kind of came back from that. I came back and got my degree, but I think my brain has stayed outside ever since. And I wouldn't have found that if I'd left my university to start with. And then thinking about that path that I was on, the university was preppy and I was thinking law school. And instead, I turned to much more of an intuitive and kind of an art-based life. So there was a big path change in a super positive direction that I would never have guessed. And it wasn't easy at the moment, but it felt right when I ended up on that new path. Another one, I chose to go to work at LL Bean up in Maine. And, they're a great company and the brand is great. It was a terrible fit for me because it was very structured and it's a $1 billion company. And I learned a ton, but boy, I did not like it. And I stayed for 6 years. And what helped was when I hit the wall day, I literally was driving to work one day and said, I have to quit. This is not healthy for me in this environment. Long hours, lots of travel, lots of pressure, kind of a little bit of a mean atmosphere. It wasn't a good fit for me. I didn't like being a manager. I didn't like the information I had to convey. Anyway, not a good fit in any way, and just quit one day. And then what was cool out of that was, here's this wall, here's great money I'm walking away from, but I had enough experience with 6 years that I became a freelancer, and I did that for 17 years. And it was when my kids needed time at home. And then the big thing was it allowed me the time to do theater work, which is something that I've continued to do ever since. So I take my same organizational skills that I got me the work at LL Bean, and I turn them to all sorts of creative pursuits like this and theater, where I can be organized and helpful, but in a much more artistic, flowy kind of way. And so the big wall on that one put me back onto a path that was in a much better direction. And then the last one, as I was brainstorming, and I offer this because it hit all of us, right, was the pandemic. So whatever you were doing, even if you were working at home, the pandemic hit in such a weird way because everything changed, everything closed. We had to look at ourselves in a different way. And the fact that it was worldwide is still shocking to me. But so for me, the pandemic was huge because I was planning a whole year of travel in 2020 to write. And so that pandemic hit, and I was going around Cape Horn at the time with my mom, and we got bounced out of South America, and I was suddenly back in Maine, and I had quit my job, and I had sold my house. So, and then here we are in this quiet time. And I was doing theater like every day before the pandemic hit, and then traveling. And I couldn't do either one. Everything closed down. And so the trip was interrupted, the theater work was interrupted, and amazingly, I've said, oh, I could actually live without travel and theater, which I wouldn't have told you I could before. And then I had a work that was supposed to start in October when I got back from my trip, but it was planning programs for a cruise industry group, and so that didn't happen. So then I had no roots left in Maine, and but I haven't moved to Virginia yet at that point. At that point, though, I was in town. I'm kicking around. I had a mammogram, and it turned out I had breast cancer. And if I'd been on the road traveling, I would not have found that out for another 6 months. So the fact that I caught it super early meant I didn't have to do chemo. I didn't have to do radiation. I just had surgery. It's gone. So that was the miracle of that. And as a friend of mine liked to say, when you are on a path and something happens, there is a gift in that. And it is not easy to see that at the time. But clearly, catching cancer in this in this time was a huge gift. And who would have known, while we were looking at coronavirus, I went with cancer, but we caught it early. And we caught it in a place where I had great health care. I had great doctors. I trusted that they would take it out. I didn't have to worry about the what ifs. I just, in the place I was in, that's what I had. We did the surgery and I came out of it. And then it left me with no roots and not knowing about my health. So I moved home. I moved back to Virginia, and that has just been huge. So you're on a path. You hit a wall. Something, the universe wanted you to go in a different direction. So that's your challenge this week, is to look at those points in your life. And then the takeaway, of course, is you've looked at that. So now the next time something major happens, and it will, because that's how things work. You got to learn, right? Somewhere is to look at that and say, something else is meant to happen. And then I love the idea that we live our lives forward, but we can only really see what's happening backwards. And the backwards is really where you can see the path. So I'm bouncing along on a preppy path. I have to go artistic. I'm bouncing along on a corporate path. I go freelance. I'm bouncing along on a theater path, writing, and the pandemic says, fine, do it, but get your health taken care of, and then go do it in a different place. All right, I hope that's helpful. If it is, please give me a like, and please share this content if there's somebody you feel like that they would connect with that. And please subscribe so that YouTube can find us. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you here again. Bye-bye.